All right, everybody. I'm going to start this segment by taking a nice fat puff from my weed concentrate vape. So I'm nice and stoned during this segment. I feel like it would make it a little bit more fitting considering what we're talking about today. I love those dab pens. They really, really are quite strong. One hit sends you somewhere, I tell you what. Anyway, today we're talking about weed addicts and weed addiction and broadly stoners in general, because stoner culture plays a really big part into the weed addict discussion. And, before I do this, I want to make it clear to everybody I am a marijuana enjoyer, okay? And I would even go as far as to say I have a marijuana addiction, quote unquote. Marijuana is addictive. I'll go into detail how in a moment. But I would argue that if I had to go like a month without weed, it would be tough. If I had to go a week without weed, it would be tough. Would it be as tough as going a week without nicotine? No. A week without caffeine? Probably not. I'm way more addicted to those two things than I am to weed. But it would be rough. Marijuana is probably considered to be the least hard drug. Some people think it's a gateway drug, one that if you try it, it's going to open you up to getting into all sorts of more dangerous and addictive drugs. And some people consider it to be like the soft, cool guy, chilled out, like, don't go past this point, chill dude drug, right? In large part, that's why it's being, legalized in many parts of the country. So, this has led to a dichotomy of misinterpretations of what weed is actually like and what using weed is really like. You've got the really extreme, insane, unrealistic dare campaign tier bullshit that was meant to scare kids away from literally doing any drugs ever, even if it's responsible, because they were afraid that if you even try marijuana, then you might end up at heroin. So they try to make everything super scary, and then when you hit high school age and you meet your friend who's a stoner but still gets all of his classwork done and is a completely functional guy, you realize, wait, all that dare campaign stuff was bullshit, and then maybe you end up trying cocaine or heroin because, well, the dare campaign stuff about weed was bullshit, so the that stuff must have been bullshit too. I could rant about how harmful dare was and how harmful that type of anti-drug lobbying has been for America for hours, but I'm not going to do that because it's really boring and unnecessary. Regardless, marijuana has this, two-sided view. Some view it as this evil gateway drug that's a path to much harder shit. Some people view it as this harmless, medicinal, healing, completely like fine herb, right? Anywhere from like it being completely harmless to it being healing, like a herb given by God to help humanity. Those are two very big extremes, but there's obviously a spectrum between them, and you may fall anywhere between those two extremes on the spectrum. That is fine. I'm not saying you have to be one or the other. You could be anywhere in between those two extremes. Here's where I stand. And this is what's backed up by some cursory research I've done, but mostly by my experience with marijuana. Stoner culture is really, really toxic. Not toxic, but like annoying. Let me give you an example. I like to test the employees at the local dispensaries. If I go into a dispensary that I've never been to before, I like to go in there and ask, so, what is your strongest cart? I want to get something really, like, I act like I'm oblivious, and I ask for their strongest cart, because I want to see if they'll actually point me to what I know is their strongest cartridge, these things that I vape, or if they're going to point me to their most expensive cart. And sure enough, almost every time, they point me to some shitty, boxed, overpriced 79% THC garbage cart. Now, that'll still get you real high and it'll still get the job done. But when there's literally a box of gelato brand, like 97% cart for like $5 less right next to it, you're getting scammed. And that's always when I say, actually, I'd like to go with whatever I like to end up getting. Usually either Papa Herb, Pacific Stone, or gelato. People who work at dispensaries, not trustworthy in regards to advice on weed. Do not listen to them. Find out what kind of strain you want to get, exactly what you want to get before you even go into the dispensary. Look on their website, look on Weed Maps, something like that. You cannot trust the people in the dispensaries. They will try to fuck you over because, well, they're just kind of there to do their job, right? If they think you're stopping in for a minute and they think that you're if you think that they're helping you out, you're more likely to tip them more. And most dispensaries' tipping system has to do with, like, one, you want people in and out of the door as quick as possible because you're just trying to relax. You're high as fuck on the job. You don't want to be talking to people. So you're just trying to get people out the fucking door. Two, if people think you helped them, but you didn't really, you were just getting them out of the door, they're more likely to tip. And the way that tips work at dispensaries, from my understanding, tends to be money goes into the tip jars. They put all of the tip jar money together at the end of the day and split it among the employees that were working during that day. That tends to be how it works. So they're really banking on there just being the largest possible amount of money in the tip jars at the end of the day as possible. So don't trust the dispensary people. They aren't trustworthy. And don't trust the people who say there is no negative or addictive qualities whatsoever to weed. I will grant it that there are no physically dependent aspects to weed in my experience. I've never gotten like shakes or like bone aches or like headaches or anything like that from not having access to weed. But I have found that I grow a very strong mental habit with weed. It's not so much a dependence as a habit. You see, one of the things that marijuana does that is kind of just the baseline for it, like regardless of what strain you're doing, regardless of what type of weed it is, it just doesn't matter. If you are high on weed, it makes doing everything more pleasant than when you're doing it sober. Taking out the trash while stoned is actually kind of a pleasant experience, while taking out the trash sober is a chore you're just getting over with. Cleaning up your house while stoned, you go into robot mode and don't even really realize that you're cleaning. And it's just done, and you realize, I've just been kind of in a stoned, high as fuck trance thinking to myself while just passively doing chores, and I didn't even realize it. This is typically how weed works for me. Weed and being high takes the effort out of life. If you enjoy something, it makes it more fun. If you don't enjoy something, it makes it more bearable. It doesn't matter if you're content in life or if you're incontent in life. It's not like just you have problems and you're using weed to get over them. If you're as happy and mentally stable as can be, and you just don't like waiting in line at the DMV, getting high before waiting in line at the DMV will make that experience 100 million times more enjoyable. Riding on a plane. Edibles are notorious for being the best thing to take before going on a plane. A nice mild edible that won't really like send you on a crazy like high. One that'll just give you a nice pleasant high. Edibles are notorious to being the go-to thing to take before you hop on a plane for that, because it kicks in after you've gone through security. It's once you're sitting on the plane, it starts to kick in. And if you are bored and upset and uncomfortable and miserable on that flight, at least you'll be high, and that will make it a little bit more pleasant. That's just the reality of weed. It makes food taste better. Any chores there? Hypers in chat if you know this is true. Being high, being stoned on weed, makes food taste better. Sex is more fun. You're more silly, and so you're just like having more fun when having sex. Like you're not taking it as seriously. Like when when I have sex, I go into it like I'm a fucking I'm a character being dropped in for like a mission in a video game. It's like, okay, I need to make her come at least 3 times before I nut. If she doesn't come 3 times before I nut, I failed this experience. But when you're high, you're just kind of having fun. Um, like that's like the like you're just kind of in, just having a good time, right? You're not really like all in your head about like, going sicko mode and having like crazy performance. You're just having a fun time, which typically ends to an even better experience overall for both parties if you're just both having fun. Like, I don't know, just marijuana makes everything better. It makes everything better. Maybe going on a roller coaster would be worse high, but I've heard accounts from people saying they like to get high and go to Six Flags with their friends, and it makes it even better. Weed makes everything better. Get masturbation while high, even better. It makes everything better. Cooking, oh my god, cooking while high is just extraordinary because you go into a trance and you don't cut any corners. You're hungry and you want the food, but then you think to yourself, oh man, some of this seasoning would sound really good with this. So then you go dig through your cabinet for 5 minutes to find that seasoning you might have to add it to your food just for a little extra kick that you thought about it being nice to have on your food. Like, cooking while high, even better. And it doesn't make you like lazier at it, depending on the strain you use. Like, if you're using an indica, then you're probably going to be a little bit lazier. But if you're on a sativa, then you're going to be like focused, not focused, but kind of in a trance as you walk around doing all the cooking or doing the chores or cleaning or whatever, right? So it's very unique from most drugs in that sense. You can't overdose on it in a deadly manner. The closest I've ever gotten to having a deadly overdose of marijuana was getting so high that I greened out, which is a marijuana overdose, which is when you get so high that you become dizzy and you start to get vertigo, which is when you start to feel like you're spinning, and then you throw up, and then you feel better. And that's what happened many, many times. Happens with alcohol, too. If you get too drunk, you start to get the spins and you vomit. Yeah, dry mouth happens as well, and you just got to drink a lot of water. The funny thing is, smoking weed and getting high helped me keep hydrated. Because dry mouth, while it is real when you're getting high, especially smoking weed, when you get high, like the stoned effect itself gives you a fake sensation of dry mouth that isn't really there. Like, most of that dry mouth feeling is just a weird fake sensation that of a body high that you're feeling, that you're getting from being stoned. Your mouth is dry and you do need water, but it's mostly just an illusion. And that illusion basically leads to you drinking tons of water when you're stoned, even though you're not really that dehydrated or that thirsty, which tends to lead to you getting, most people are dehydrated and don't drink enough water. So it helps you keep hydrated if you've got dry mouth and you're or the sensation of dry mouth from being stoned, and you're just constantly taking sips of water to try to make it go away. I found that it really helped me get like more hydrated. There are benefits to weed. There are pain-killing effects that are much better and more healthy than getting addicted to prescription pills. You can't die from weed like you can from most drugs, whether from overdosing or from withdrawing. It's a mixed bag. I'm not going to go full weed dick rider here and say it's like this god tier perfect thing. It has its problems, and that's what we're going to get to in a minute, but it's a nice thing. I like weed, and I think it should be legalized nationwide, federally. I think it should be legalized worldwide. However, Discourse was started yesterday when popular YouTuber Emplemon tweeted to 37,000 likes this hot scalding take on weed smokers. Weed addicts are definitely more obnoxious than drunks, and it's not even close. Whew. The age-old war of alcohol versus weed. Now, I'm inclined to disagree in some respects, but I'm inclined to agree in others. Alcoholics tend not to be talkative about being alcoholics. Actually, no, fuck that. No, never mind. No, you know what? Fuck that. Nope. Never mind. There are literal direct parallels between alcoholics and stoners. Only drinking too much will kill you, and not drinking enough when you become addicted to alcohol and dependent on it will also kill you. Think about it like this. You ever been to a brewery or to one of those places where people like sommeliers where they taste wine? I think that's what they are, right? Sommeliers is the term for it. Where they like the wine tasters. Like, that shit is just as cringy and obsessive and basing your personality around alcohol as stoners and dispensary guys and weed home growers are about growing their own weed and making it their own personality. Have you ever met the types of dudes that travel around to go to different wine tastings? Have you ever been to a brewery and heard like, or to like a place where they distill liquor and heard a guy say, ah, yes, this alcohol, which is literally like 80%, I don't know, it's like mostly ethanol. It's literally just the taste of ethanol, but hey, it has a woody, smoky flavor to it. You taste it and it's like, this tastes like alcohol. Okay, well, try this one. This one has a bit of an herby kind of citrusy flavor to it. Okay. Yeah, this is just alcohol. Okay, well, try this one. This has a fruity bouquet. It's just alcohol. What are you fucking talking about? Like, nah, I'm sorry. IPA guys, too. Alcoholics are just as obnoxious as weed guys. Actually, they're more obnoxious because they will fucking die if they drink too much, and when they become too dependent on it, they could fucking die from not drinking often enough. They literally end up... It's literally a thing. People die from alcohol withdrawals. You don't die from weed withdrawals, and you can't die from smoking too much weed. That alone, I'm sorry. Alcoholics have literally just had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of alcohol being normalized in broader culture, putting aside things like the prohibition, which literally don't last very long because they're unpopularity, to like make their alcoholism and their making their personality about beer and wine and liquor into seeming more sophisticated and more attractive than stoners have had time to make it. Because stoners have had to make their thing a whole like illegal kind of like, the stoner drug dealer guy kind of aesthetic for a long time. And now they're just getting to make it mainstream in some states. But eventually going into like a dispensary is going to be like going to a wine tasting eventually. Like, it's going to reach that level. It's all just aesthetics. Employment is just allowing the alcoholics to fool him. Like, how are the hipsters that work at, like, fucking breweries and that talk about, yes, this one has a bit of an hopsy flavor to it. How are those people not, like, the same as weed bros? New Zan voice? That's my Butler. That's my Zan Butler voice. Oh, yes. I'll let you stick a candlestick in my ass if you pay me $20. I'm the butler. Okay. Sounds like a bottom. Yes, the butler is a bottom. 100% agree with Zan. Alcohol has been grandfathered into our culture. It's taboo to talk about weed and other drugs in front of coworkers, but totally okay to talk about alcohol. Yep. Having a beer with your coworkers, having a beer with your boss is literally considered like the peak of reaching a level of like trust and bond and like if like chilling out together, right? It's totally socially acceptable. But if your boss found out you're smoking weed with your coworker or you smoked weed with your boss, well, you're both on liable grounds to get fired, you know? It's a very different culture. Very, very, very different. Also, when people try to demonize weed smokers in comparison to drinkers, it feels like some tacit condemning of weed and endorsement of alcohol over it. It just gives me that vibe, you know? I don't like it. I don't like it, chat. Alcohol is bad for you. I don't drink much. I'm not a big fan of liquor. I'll drink from time to time if it's like appropriate on the occasion, like at a restaurant, if it's like everyone else is having a drink and I feel like it. If I'm on stream and I'm having a drink, but like I never sit down and have a drink for leisure. It's always because the circumstances kind of require it. I'm much more into like, you know, kind of having a nice puff puff